Today, we are diving into one of the most powerful ideas in system design. It's an idea that comes from Fred Brooks's absolute classic, The Mythical Man-Month. And believe me, it is just as important today as it was 50 years ago. It's called conceptual integrity. And to really get it, we're not starting with software, we're starting with architecture. Right. So to understand one of the most important rules for building great software, we have to travel back in time to a magnificent French cathedral. This little quote from a guidebook for Reims Cathedral holds the entire key. It talks about its extreme coherence and unity. So you have to wonder, how on earth did they pull that off? Well, it all comes down to a tale of two different ways of building something huge and complicated. A tale of two cathedrals. And here's where it gets really interesting. See, most European cathedrals are kind of a mishmash. They were built over centuries, and every new builder wanted to add their own cool new feature in whatever style was popular at the time. The result? A clash of styles, a monument to a bunch of individual egos. But Reims is different. For 8 generations, the builders there did something incredible. They put their egos aside. They served a single, unified plan, and the result is just breathtaking coherence. And that is the exact problem so many big software projects have, right? They become this jumble of competing ideas instead of a single, beautiful whole. This brings us right back from ancient cathedrals to modern software, and what Fred Brooks says is the single most important thing to think about in system design. And here it is, the big idea, conceptual integrity. It's actually a pretty simple concept, but it's so profound. It's the idea that it's way better for a system to be consistent and make sense, even if it means you have to leave out some pretty clever features along the way. Having one single unified vision is just so much more important than having a bunch of good but totally disconnected ideas. Okay, so if that's the goal, how do you measure it? I mean, what's the real test of where a system is actually well designed or not? The answer is not just about how many features you can cram into a system. Not at all. The true measure is the ratio of what it can do, its function, to how complicated it is for a person to actually use it. And that's why ease of use is everything. A system is a failure if all its amazing power is buried under layers and layers of complexity. You know, real elegance is when something is both powerful and simple at the same time. But this creates a huge problem. I mean, if you need one mind or a very small group of minds to keep that conceptual integrity, how in the world do you build a massive system that needs hundreds of people to actually create it? Well, this leads to a super important separation of duties: architecture versus implementation. The solution is to draw a really hard line in the sand. The architect, their job is to define the what. You can think of them as the user's lawyer, obsessed with every single detail of the experience. The implementer, on the other hand, figures out the how. They're the builder. They're the ones creating all the internal machinery to make that architect's vision come to life. Oh, and Garrett Blau, one of the pioneers of computing, just nailed it with this perfect analogy: a clock. Think about it. The architecture is the face. The hands, the little knob used to set the time, it's everything you need to see what time it is. The implementation, that's the crazy, complex world of gears and springs or maybe quartz crystals hiding inside. The point is, you can tell time on a tiny wristwatch or a giant church tower without having a clue what's making it tick. That is the power of separating these two things. So, what happens when you ignore this principle? Well, Fred Brooks tells this painful, personal, and very expensive story of what can go wrong. So, back when they were building IBM's OS/360, they had a fork in the road. The architecture manager said, look, my 10 experts can write the specifications correctly, but it's going to take 10 months. The implementation manager said, whoa, my 150 engineers can do it on schedule and it'll keep them busy. So what did management do? Terrified of having 150 people just sitting around, they went with the bigger team. And the result? It was a total disaster. The project was late, and the final product was a mess of uncoordinated ideas. It had absolutely no conceptual integrity. And the cost of that one bad decision? It was staggering. Brooks estimated that the lack of conceptual integrity, that disunity in the design, added a full year to the debugging time. That is the price you pay for ignoring the lessons of that French cathedral. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This whole idea of a small group of architects calling all the shots can feel, well, a little undemocratic, right? It definitely brings up a lot of questions about creativity and the role of the person actually building the thing.
Yeah, you can almost hear the objections. Implementers usually have three big ones. First, hey, the architects get to have all the creative fun. Second, so we're just supposed to sit around and wait for the specs to be handed down from on high? And third, the architects are going to dream up these impossible ideas that are completely impractical or way too expensive to actually build. And you know what? Those are all totally valid concerns.
But the counterargument is captured in this beautiful, powerful little phrase that artists love: form is liberating. The idea here is that constraints, like a clear architectural plan, don't kill creativity, they focus it. I mean, think of Bach. He wasn't stifled because he had to write a new cantata every single week. That strict form gave him a canvas for his genius. And this just reframes the entire debate. See, implementation isn't less creative, it's a different kind of creative. The architect solves the what, but the implementer gets to tackle the equally brilliant challenge of the how. How do we build this vision elegantly, efficiently, and affordably? That is where the real technical brilliance, the real magic, happens. And that leaves us with one final thought to take home. As you look at the projects you're working on, doesn't matter if it's software, a business plan, or even just a creative project, ask yourself this one simple but absolutely vital question. Who is the architect? Is there a clear, unified vision, or is it just a collection of good but uncoordinated ideas? The answer to that question might just decide if it succeeds or fails.